What's up, guys? Mr. Kevin here. Hoping you guys are all safe and well and healthy. Today we have a source analysis. I was originally going to wait a little bit to film this lesson, but I came across something on my Google, what's it called, like Google Updates or my Google notifications, and it was really interesting. So what it said was that today, April 6th, 1917, was the day that the United States entered World War I. So I decided to seize that opportunity and give you guys a World War I lesson, kind of building off of the source lesson that we did last time. That was a primary, secondary source, kind of a refresher. So we're going to build on that and go ahead and take a look at a source that has to do with World War I to kind of commemorate that event, United States entering the war. So this lesson, it can pertain to all of my classes. So even if you're not in 9th grade, which is the class we're learning about World War I, you can still do this lesson. And you should still do this lesson because it's a skill that is transferable to all of my social studies classes. And that is taking a look at a source. Does it answer your question? Is it a primary or secondary source? Those are all things that we can all continue to work on. So no matter what grade you're in, you should get something out of this video. And there is like a brief little assignment at the end. So make sure you stay tuned and watch till the end to make sure you get the assignment. So what we're going to be taking a look at today is a novel written in 1928 about World War I. The novel, it's known as the greatest war novel of all time. At least that's what it says on the cover. The author is Erich Maria Remarque, and the title of the book is All Quiet on the Western Front. So I actually have the book here. This is what we're going to be taking a look at. So after I kind of give you a little author background, I'm going to actually read a passage, and we're going to see kind of using those two pieces of information, whether this is a primary or secondary source, and whether the passage that I chose answers our question. So, like I start all my lessons with an objective and a question. So the objective for today, what I want you guys to be able to do is kind of take a look at a source, and using the information that the source gives you, is it a primary or secondary source? So I'd like you guys at the very end to tell me whether it's a primary or secondary source based on the information that I give to you about the novel. And then we can take a look at whether or not my question gets answered. So the question is, and my 9th graders will appreciate this because it's the same question that I ask you in your work that I sent home, or your next batch of work, I should say. And that question is this: what was life like in the trenches during World War I? So a lot of this book, All Quiet on the Western Front, takes place in the trenches. And it has some really riveting passages about what that was like. So before I get too much into that, let's talk about the author. So kind of part one of our activity is discussing the author. So I'll make sure that goes there. A little bit of information. Erich Maria Remarque was a 20th century German novelist. So it is from the German perspective, which if my 9th graders and 10th graders remember World War I at all, Germany is kind of they're the ones that are vilified by America. They're the ones that are made to look like brutes and monsters by the American media. So keep that in mind. Erich Maria Remarque wrote All Quiet on the Western Front in 1928. Remember, the United States didn't enter the war until 1917, and the war started in 1914. So this is being written about 13, 14 years after the fact. However, something that makes this book and this author very interesting in determining whether it's a primary or secondary source is that Erich Maria Remarque was actually in World War I. He was drafted at age 18. And he fought, for the Germans on the Western Front, per the title. And he was wounded 5 times in battle. So he has a lot of history connected to World War I, and he might know kind of what it was like. So we should probably take that into account when we think about whether this is a primary or secondary source. Excuse me. So that's our little discussion of the author. What I'd like to do now is just read a brief passage. It's only 3 paragraphs, very short, from the book that might give us kind of a little bit of an insight into trench warfare, and maybe not so much like the weapons and stuff that were used, but more like how did the soldiers think? What was going through their head that were having to fight on the trenches day in and day out for months and months and months. And that might answer our question. So let me go ahead and just read this passage, and we'll talk about it afterward. Excuse me. All right. The front is a cage in which we must await fearfully what may happen. We lie under the network of arching shells and live in a suspense of uncertainty. Over us, chance hovers. If a shot comes, we can duck. That is all. We neither know nor can determine where it will fall. Now, if they're talking about arching shells, that's artillery. So they're not able to know where the artillery is going to land. They can just hear it. It is this chance that makes us indifferent. A few months ago, I was sitting in a dugout playing scat. After a while, I stood up and went to visit some friends in another dugout. Excuse me. On my return, nothing more was to be seen of the first one. It had been blown to pieces by a direct hit. I went back to the second and arrived just in time to lend a hand in digging it out. In the interval, it had been buried. It is just as much a matter of chance that I am still alive as that I might have been hit. In a bomb-proof dugout, I may be smashed to atoms, and in the open may survive 10 hours of bombardment unscathed. No soldier outlives 1,000 chances, but every soldier believes in chance and trusts his luck. All right, so pretty interesting stuff, kind of into the psyche about what it would be to be a World War I soldier in the trenches. And again, if you guys react pretty positively to this, we can maybe check out another passage because it's got a lot of really good stuff in there. So let's kind of do a kind of unpacking of what we just read. The author's talking about what it would be like to be in the trenches and kind of not knowing if or when you're gonna die. Like it's kind of up to chance. Like he said, he was in the one dugout and then he left it to go see another one, and then the one he was in was destroyed completely. So when he went back to the original dugout, saw it was destroyed, he was like, oh, what am I gonna do now? I gotta go back to the other one. He went back to the other one, and that one was destroyed. So it's like, it's hard to say, or at least it was on the front. It was hard to say, what was going to happen. There wasn't a whole lot you could do to preserve your own life. It was just kind of a matter of, were you in the right place at the right time or in the wrong place at the wrong time, So, yeah, it's just kind of crazy. How crazy that period of time was, and just how, maybe we can draw some parallels to today even. I don't want to do too much of that because it's just, we've already got so much going on with this, but just the uncertainty. Like, there's a lot of uncertainty today about, this virus and the way it's impacting society. And so just think back to World War I and being in the trenches, like just how much uncertainty there was with those young men who were, a lot of them, like I said, Eric Maria Remarque, was drafted at age 18. So he probably wasn't much older, if he was older at all, than many of you guys. I sure as heck couldn't, fathom being on the front with that much uncertainty at such a young age. So Of course, I'm getting old now, but back then, in the good old days. So let's just think about this. We know a few pieces of information. We know the author, Eric Maria Remarque. We know for a fact that he was in World War I at the time, drafted at age 18, and he fought in World War I for the Germans, and he was injured 5 times. So he was, in fact, in the war. Now, he waited, probably justifiably so, a few years to actually write the novel. And you know that novels aren't actually, they're not actually historically, technically accurate, because a novel is something called fiction. It's kind of made up to an extent. So this is what would be called historical fiction. So it takes place during a real time in history, and it tries to reflect a lot of the real stuff that was happening. And it mentions some real things like the Battle of the Somme. It mentions the Battle of the Somme in the book, and the Battle of the Somme was one of the deadliest battles of World War I. So there's still aspects of truth and aspects of reality in the book, but the characters in the book are made up. So, to what degree can a historian use this book to answer our question, what was life like during World War I in the trenches? So my first question for you guys, and I would like you guys to kind of the same thing as last time, do this on a half sheet. You can do it on the same half sheet as the previous one, or you can do it on a whole new half sheet. Doesn't matter to me. I want you guys to tell me, first question, do you think this is a useful source as a historian to answer our question? What was life like in the trenches during World War I? And on top of that, oh, can't do that. Can't touch my face. So can we use this book as a source to answer our question? Secondly, what type of source is this? Is this a primary source or is this a secondary source? And I want you to explain to me why you think one or the other. And kind of how you explain it could justify your response. So I'm not going to take points off if I think you're wrong or whatever, but I just want you guys to kind of engage with this style of learning, me giving you something on YouTube in a video, and then kind of engaging with it at home, using skills that we've learned in class and we're kind of refreshing now. So first question, is this book useful to historians? Does it answer our question? And then second question, is it a primary source or is it a secondary source? And why do you think so? Why do you think that? Again, if you want to check out some more of that happens in this book, I can choose another really interesting passage. There's a whole bunch of them in the book. We can do that. Just leave a comment if you'd like to see more. And in the future, I also have other books lined up to kind of do the same thing. So we'll get a little bit of reading and a little bit of analysis going. So I'm kind of giving you everything you need. I'm trying to keep this video under 15 minutes, so we're doing pretty well. So I'm probably going to wrap it up. Again, as always, if you guys have questions, feel free to shoot me a text, give me a call, give me an email. Excuse me. I also wanted to notify everyone, all the kids that are watching. I did send out an email from an app that I just downloaded to keep in contact with all of your parents. The app is called Remind. It's called Remind, and it will allow me to message kind of groups of parents all at once. So if your parents get an email from me about Remind or get an email from the app Remind, that is from me, and it's for getting information from me. Kind of like, when do I plan on posting the YouTube video? Is there anything you guys need to do to prepare for the YouTube video? Is there any work you need to do associated with the YouTube video? I can put all that stuff in the Remind, and your parents will get that immediately. So check that out. Check out the Facebook page because it's still giving updates. And last thing that I'll put in here, if you have work that is finished, you can always text pictures to your teachers. You can drop it off at the building on Mondays from 11 to 1, and or you can email it. So I hope you guys are staying safe, working hard, and staying healthy. So from me to you guys, take care. Have a great rest of the day. It's sunny out now, so maybe catch some rays, and I will catch you in the next video. So thanks, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.